During a sprint planning meeting, two team members were debating whether a task would take 4 or 5 hours. Back and forth they argued. I couldn't take it anymore. I typed 5 into the cell of the spreadsheet they were using to plan the sprint. A little later in the same meeting, two programmers were arguing about the best way to implement a feature. They'd only argued for a couple minutes when I asked them how long they thought their preferred approaches would take. They each said 4 hours. I typed in write code and 4 hours in the spreadsheet. Then I added another row, fight, and allocated them 1 hour to hash out the best approach. These are just two of the many examples I've seen of teams doing sprint planning poorly. Hi, I'm Mike Cohn, and I'm the author of 3 best-selling books on Agile and Scrum. I help teams succeed with Agile. And in this video, I'm going to help you run sprint planning meetings that finish on time. The way to do it is to stop trying to identify every task that will be performed during the sprint. That level of detail is not necessary. In fact, it's impossible and leads to overly long sprint planning meetings. Think about it this way. Suppose you're planning a week-long vacation. Since we're making this up, let's make it somewhere great. You're going to Paris for a week. To make the most out of that trip, you'll probably want to make a list of the most important things you want to see or do while in the City of Light. Visit the Louvre, the Musée d'Orsay, a day trip to Versailles, see the world's largest ball of twine. Wait, that's in Kansas. Anyway, you get the idea. You're not going to make a list of everything you're going to do in Paris. I'm a planner when I travel, but even I am not going to make a list of everything I'm going to do. If you disagree, think again. It's no different when planning a sprint. Team members don't need to think of everything. In my experience, a team that identifies about 2/3 of its potential tasks during sprint planning has done a good job. That is normally enough to know if the sprint is full. As an example, Lisa is a great Scrum Master I worked with. She looked at how many tasks her team had done in each of its past few sprints. This is easy data to get from essentially any Agile tool. She found that the team averaged 70 tasks during their 2-week sprints. She told the team that she wanted to try cutting 30 minutes from the time they normally allocated to sprint planning. She suggested saving that time by not trying so hard to think of every task. She kept the target of 2/3 to herself, but as the meeting progressed, she kept an eye on the number of tasks, knowing that if the team went much beyond identifying about 50 tasks, they were probably spending too much time on planning. That's how she knew when to tell the team they'd been at it long enough. When the sprint ended 2 weeks later, the team had successfully met their sprint goal, completing all the product backlog items they brought into the sprint. I don't necessarily want you to cut a team off once they've identified 2/3 of their average. Instead, I suggest using this as a gauge for whether the team might be spending too much or too little time in sprint planning. Suppose instead the team is planning a sprint and they identify 30, then 40, then 50 tasks. You know that's well above the 2/3 of the likely 60 total tasks. You can't really stop them at that time because maybe they haven't identified any task for the last product backlog item. Instead, use that information to encourage a shorter next sprint planning meeting, much as Lisa did in the story. It's worth pointing out that I am suggesting identifying 2/3 of the tasks, but that will almost certainly comprise more than 2/3 of the hours in the sprint. This is because the tasks team members will identify will be the bigger, more obvious ones. The team isn't going to forget the 8-hour main coding task. During sprint planning, however, they may forget the 1-hour task to update a report after the coding is done. Focusing on identifying the most important tasks during sprint planning, rather than striving to identify every task, can save teams up to an hour in sprint planning. And the team should still be just as likely to finish the needed work to achieve their sprint goal. How are your sprint planning meetings going? Do you think they could be shortened and remain as effective? Or do you need to spend more time in planning? Please let me know in the comments. I read and appreciate every comment. If this video has been helpful, click the like button. And if you're new to this channel, click subscribe so you don't miss out on future tips to help you succeed with Agile. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.